Have you ever wondered if you're the wise man in the room or just the loudest fool? There's a certain kind of man who walks through life unaware that every step he takes is a step in the wrong direction. He repeats the same mistakes, defends the same broken ideas, and blames the world when things fall apart. To him, everyone else is blind. But in truth, he's the one stumbling in the dark. Stupidity isn't just about intelligence. It's not about test scores or fancy degrees. It's a mindset. A stubborn refusal to grow, to reflect, to change. It poisons decision-making, sabotages relationships, and turns a man into his own worst enemy. The danger? Most men don't even realize it's happening. But here's the good news: you can wake up. You can break the cycle, and it all starts with awareness. In this video, we'll uncover the signs not to judge, but to reflect. Because if you catch even one of them in yourself, that's not weakness. That's the beginning of wisdom. So take a breath, keep an open mind, and let's find out what kind of man you really are. Sign number 1, he thinks his feelings are more important than reality. Picture this: a man gets cut off in traffic. His blood boils. Without thinking, he slams the horn, rolls down the window, and starts yelling at a stranger. Why? Because in that moment, his anger feels more real than the road, more justified than safety, more important than self-respect. That's the mark of a stupid man. Not because he feels, but because he lets those feelings drive the wheel. Stoicism teaches that emotions are not enemies but messengers. They're signals, not orders. But the stupid man doesn't know that. To him, emotions are commands, and he obeys them blindly. If he feels disrespected, he lashes out. If he feels sad, he quits. If something bruises his ego, he becomes a storm, expecting the world to shelter him from the rain. And when it doesn't, he calls life unfair. But reality doesn't bend for your mood. The world doesn't slow down because you're upset. The wise man knows this. He understands what Epictetus meant when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The Stoic doesn't repress his feelings. He masters them. He doesn't pretend they're not there. He simply refuses to be ruled by them. He pauses, observes, and acts with reason, not impulse. Like a surfer riding a wave, he doesn't fight emotion, nor does he drown in it. He rides it with skill, balance, and presence of mind. Think of someone you know, maybe even yourself, who's destroyed a relationship over a burst of jealousy, or lost a job over pride, or said things in anger that couldn't be unsaid. In every one of those moments, emotion shouted louder than reason. And the consequences weren't just immediate. They lingered. Regret is often what follows emotional decisions made in the heat of the moment. Now imagine a different man. He still gets angry, but instead of reacting, he breathes. He still feels insulted, but instead of retaliating, he reflects. He still feels fear, but instead of freezing, he takes the next step anyway. That's strength, not the absence of emotion, but the power to move through it with grace and control. There's a deeper danger here, too. The man who worships his feelings often believes they define him, that his truth is the truth, that if he feels something deeply, it must be real. But feelings lie. Fear can whisper that you're not good enough. Anger can convince you you're under attack. Sadness can say nothing will ever get better. If you build your life on those voices, you're building on sand. The Stoics remind us the only thing truly in our control is how we respond. You don't control the traffic. You don't control how others treat you. But you do control whether you explode or stay composed, whether you retreat or remain steady. Here's the hard truth most people avoid: being emotionally reactive isn't a sign of authenticity. It's a sign of immaturity. It means you haven't done the inner work. It means your emotions are the master, and you are the servant. So ask yourself honestly, how many decisions in your life were made with calm reason, and how many were just reactions in disguise? When was the last time you paused to question your feelings before acting on them? Because the wise man treats emotions like weather, temporary, unpredictable, but never in control of the journey. He builds his life not on how he feels, but on what he knows. And the best part? This kind of wisdom isn't reserved for the monks or philosophers. It's built in the everyday. One breath, one pause, one choice at a time. So the next time your anger rises, your pride flares, or your sadness pulls you under, remember, you're not your feelings. You are the one who decides what to do with them. That's not just stoicism. That's freedom. Sign number 2, he argues more than he listens. You've seen this man before. Maybe across a dinner table, maybe online, or maybe in the mirror. No matter the topic, no matter how much he doesn't know, he talks like he's the final authority. He interrupts, deflects, and twists every word just to avoid saying one simple phrase, I might be wrong. To him, conversation isn't a chance to learn. It's a battlefield. Every disagreement is war. And every opposing opinion is a threat to be crushed. But what he doesn't realize is that in trying so hard to win, he's proving he's already lost. Because here's the truth, the man who argues constantly is not defending truth. He's defending his fragile ego. And that ego is loud. It shouts over wisdom. It blocks out reason. It confuses stubbornness with strength. The Stoics had a name for this sickness of the soul, arrogance. Seneca wrote, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable." But that power comes from calm, from clarity, not from shouting over others to prove you're right. The stupid man believes victory lies in talking more. The wise man knows it lies in listening better. Let's bring this down to something we all recognize. Imagine you're having a conversation with a friend, maybe about politics, maybe about relationships, maybe just about where to eat. You suggest an idea. He instantly shoots it down. No questions, no curiosity, just criticism. The next 10 minutes, a pointless back and forth that leaves you drained, unheard, and frustrated. Sound familiar? Now flip the script. Imagine talking to someone who says, "That's interesting. Tell me more." You feel respected, engaged, maybe even challenged, but in a way that makes you think, not fight. That's the kind of man people want to follow, the kind who doesn't need to dominate the room to hold power in it. Here's the irony, the more a man insists he's right, the more likely he's deeply insecure about being wrong. That's why he gets defensive, even hostile, when challenged. Deep down, he fears being exposed, not just to others, but to himself. It's not logic he's fighting for. It's identity. He needs to be right because he's built his entire self-image on it. But the Stoics knew better. They saw humility not as weakness, but as the gateway to growth. Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, journaled to himself daily, not to boast, but to question, to doubt, to correct. Think about that. The most powerful man in the world wrote reminders to stay humble. Meanwhile, the average man can't even admit he misquoted something on Twitter. Listening is an act of strength. It takes discipline to hold your tongue. It takes wisdom to say, "I don't know." It takes confidence to hear another viewpoint and not feel threatened by it. And in that silence, where the ego would usually scream, you'll find something rare and valuable, truth. Let me give you a modern example. At work, there's always that one guy in the meeting who speaks over everyone, rejects feedback, and steamrolls ideas. He may look dominant in the moment, but watch closely. He rarely improves. He gets passed over for leadership roles. People stop sharing with him, not because he's feared, but because he's exhausting. Now contrast that with the man who listens first, asks good questions, and speaks with calm precision. That man doesn't need to raise his voice. His presence speaks louder than noise ever could. So here's the challenge: next time you find yourself about to argue, pause. Ask yourself, is this about truth, or is this about me? Am I listening to understand, or just waiting for my turn to speak? Every moment you resist the urge to react, you build inner strength. Every time you choose curiosity over combat, you grow. Because the world doesn't need more men who are always right. It needs more men who are always learning. And that starts with the humility to shut up and listen. Sign number 3, he never learns from his mistakes. There's a certain kind of man who treats life like a broken record. Different day, same disaster. He falls into the same toxic relationships, burns money on pointless things, trusts people who clearly don't deserve it. And every time, he shrugs and says, "Man, I've just got bad luck." But here's the hard truth, it's not bad luck. It's bad patterns. And the stupid man doesn't even see it. He walks through fire, gets burned, and then walks right back in, hoping this time the flames will be more forgiving. But life doesn't work like that. Reality doesn't reward ignorance. And pain, when ignored, doesn't disappear. It multiplies. The Stoics believed mistakes weren't failures. They were feedback. Each one is a mirror showing us where we're blind, where we're weak, where we need to grow. But the stupid man refuses to look. He distracts himself with blame, excuses, or fake optimism. Instead of asking, "What did I miss?" he says, "That's just how life is." Take a simple example, relationships. We all know someone who keeps dating the same type of person. Dramatic, manipulative, emotionally unavailable. It crashes every time. Friends see it coming from a mile away. But he doesn't. He convinces himself this one's different, even though it's the same pattern in a new outfit. Why? Because it's easier to blame crazy exes than to face the uncomfortable truth, he never healed, never reflected, never changed. Or think about money. A man spends beyond his means. New gadgets, get-rich-quick schemes, flashy nights out. Then the debt piles up. The anxiety kicks in. And instead of learning from the pain, he blames the economy or his boss or the system, anything but himself. The wise man? He plays it differently. He makes mistakes too. Everyone does. But he doesn't repeat them. He sits with them, studies them. He writes them down. He asks, "What part of this was my doing?" Not out of guilt, but out of a hunger to grow. He sees mistakes as teachers, not enemies. That's why he evolves while others stay stuck. Seneca once wrote, "A man's as miserable as he thinks he is." And the man who refuses to learn from his failures creates his own misery again and again. Not because the world hates him, but because he won't pause long enough to listen to what life is trying to teach. Here's the deeper danger: when you stop learning from your mistakes, you start normalizing them. Chaos becomes comfort. Dysfunction feels familiar. And soon, you're not just making bad choices, you're building an identity around them. You start believing this is just who I am. And that belief? That's the death of growth. But it doesn't have to be that way. Growth isn't reserved for the perfect. It's available to the honest. The man who can say, "I messed up, and I don't want to do that again," is already miles ahead of the one who keeps repeating history and wondering why nothing changes. There's a simple habit that separates the wise from the foolish: reflection. Not just remembering what went wrong, but dissecting it. Journaling, asking tough questions, talking less, and listening more. To yourself and to those who've been where you are. Let me give you a relatable example. Imagine a man who keeps arriving late to important meetings. Every time, he blames traffic. He's annoyed, flustered, makes excuses, but nothing changes. One day, a colleague pulls him aside and says, "Have you noticed this keeps happening?" That's a moment of choice. The stupid man gets defensive, says, "It's not my fault." The wise man nods, admits it, and starts leaving 15 minutes earlier. That's it, one tiny change. But over time, those tiny corrections shape an entirely different life. So ask yourself, what's one mistake you've made more than once? And more importantly, why? What lesson is life trying to teach you that you keep skipping? Because the stupid man sees failure as the end. The wise man sees it as the beginning of better. Don't fear your mistakes. Fear what happens when you refuse to learn from them. Sign number 4, he seeks validation instead of truth. There's a silent tragedy in the life of a man who doesn't know who he is because he's too busy trying to be who others want him to be. The stupid man doesn't seek what's true. He seeks what's approved. He tailors his words to fit the crowd, not his conscience. He acts not out of principle, but performance. His confidence is borrowed from comments, applause, and attention. And when that validation fades, so does he. You'll recognize him instantly. On social media, he's the chameleon, saying whatever gets the most likes, resharing what's trending, chasing relevance like its purpose. In conversations, he nods along even when he disagrees, afraid of being the odd one out. In relationships, he becomes who he thinks the other person wants, slowly burying his real self under layers of fake charm. And the most dangerous part? He believes he's doing the right thing because it feels good in the moment. But Stoicism teaches us what feels good is not always what is good. The wise man doesn't measure his worth by the echo of applause. He measures it by the alignment between his values and his actions. Truth, for him, isn't negotiable. It's his foundation. Even when it's inconvenient. Picture this: a man in a meeting hears a plan that he knows is flawed. He stays silent because he doesn't want to rock the boat. Later, when the project fails, he says, "I knew that would happen." But he didn't speak up. Not because he lacked insight, but because he lacked courage. That's not humility. That's fear in disguise. Or think about a friend who constantly shifts depending on who he's with. Around confident people, he mimics their strength. Around critical ones, he plays small to avoid conflict. It's not versatility. It's identity erosion. And deep down, most people can spot it. They may not say it out loud, but they know, this man can't be trusted to stand for anything because he stands for everything. Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus once said, "It is not necessary for all men to hold you in esteem, especially when you do not esteem yourself." That's the heart of this. When a man places more value on what others think of him than on what he knows to be right, he trades self-respect for social comfort. And that's a price far too many pay. We've all been there. Laughing at jokes that made us uncomfortable. Staying silent in moments that needed a voice. Posting things we didn't believe just to fit in. These aren't crimes. They are symptoms. The question is, do we keep doing it, or do we start noticing the cost? Because every time you bend for approval, you chip away at your core. And over time, that core becomes hollow. The wise man builds an inner compass. He doesn't outsource direction to the crowd. He listens inwardly before he speaks outwardly. And yes, sometimes that means standing alone. But in solitude, he gains strength. In silence, he finds clarity. Because nothing is more powerful than a man who knows who he is and doesn't need your permission to be it. So ask yourself, are you speaking your truth, or performing for applause? Are your choices based on values, or on what's popular? Validation feels good. But truth builds you. And if you've spent too long playing the part others expect of you, maybe it's time to write your own script. Not to impress, but to express what's real. That's where freedom begins. Sign number 5, he thinks luck matters more than discipline. The stupid man has a favorite excuse. And its name is luck. When he sees someone thriving, he doesn't see the years of work, the quiet sacrifices, the boring consistency behind the scenes. He sees a lottery ticket. Must be nice, he says, watching a man succeed. He probably got lucky. A business owner? Inherited money? A fit guy? Good genetics? A happy family? Just found the right person. But ask him what he's doing to improve his own life, and the room goes quiet. That's because blaming luck is easier than facing laziness. It's easier to say the game is rigged than to admit you've never trained to play. But Stoic philosophy doesn't leave much room for that kind of thinking. It demands ownership. It teaches that your life is shaped by your choices, not your chances. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The stupid man refuses to realize this. He'd rather believe in fate than take responsibility. And so he becomes passive, bitter, envious, watching others climb while he stays rooted in place, convinced they just got lucky while he's stuck because the universe has it out for him. But let's be real, success, true success, isn't lightning striking. It's a fire you build day by day, brick by brick. And it's boring. Waking up early. Saying no to distractions. Showing up when no one's watching. The stupid man avoids boredom at all costs. The wise man embraces it because he knows discipline is the soil where growth happens. Picture a guy who keeps saying he wants to get in shape. Every year, he sets a new fitness goal. But by February, he's back on the couch, scrolling, complaining about people with six-packs and saying they must have good genes. What he doesn't admit is that he skipped the gym, binged at midnight, and gave up after 2 weeks. He thinks others got lucky, but he never stuck around long enough to find out what consistency actually does. Now picture a different man. He wakes up at 5 a.m. rain or shine. Not because it's fun, but because it matters. He goes to the gym when he doesn't feel like it. He budgets when his friends are out partying. He studies while others sleep. You might look at his results and think it's luck, but it's not. It's the invisible power of showing up over and over again, even when no one's clapping. The Stoics understood this kind of discipline. Epictetus, born a slave, rose to become one of the greatest philosophers in history not because he was lucky, but because he focused only on what he could control, his effort, his attitude, his response. That's where power lives. Not in fate, but in daily choices. Here's the irony: the harder you work, the luckier you get. Because what most people call luck is often just unseen effort finally meeting opportunity. The man who trains every day will look lucky when he gets the job, wins the race, builds the business. But it wasn't luck. It was preparation meeting the moment. So ask yourself honestly, where in your life have you blamed luck to avoid taking action? Have you told yourself someone else's life was easier just to feel better about not putting in the work? Because that mindset, that belief that success is random, is not just wrong. It's dangerous. It keeps you small. It keeps you stagnant. It gives you permission to do nothing while expecting everything. The wise man knows better. He doesn't gamble with life. He invests in it. Quietly, consistently, without needing applause. So if you're waiting for luck to save you, stop. It's not coming. But discipline? That's already in your hands. And when you finally choose to master it, you'll stop watching others win and start building your own victory, one unglamorous, powerful step at a time. Sign number 6, he wastes his time on meaningless battles. There's no shortage of noise in the world, and the stupid man is always eager to add to it. He argues in comment sections with strangers he'll never meet. He spends hours locked in debate over topics that have zero impact on his life. He takes every disagreement personally, every challenge as a threat. Why? Because he mistakes noise for significance. He believes that winning an argument is the same as winning at life. But all he's really doing is burning energy on battles that don't matter. The Stoics taught us that life is short and our attention is precious. The wise man treats both with respect. He doesn't chase every conflict. He doesn't engage every fool. He knows his energy is limited, and he spends it where it counts. Think of a man who gets into a heated debate on social media about some political issue. 2 hours later, he's still typing furiously, heart pounding, convinced he's defending truth. Meanwhile, his goals sit untouched, his relationships neglected, his peace of mind shattered. What exactly did he win? The truth is, some battles aren't worth fighting, not because they're easy, but because they're empty. A disciplined mind knows the difference between defending your values and feeding your ego. The stupid man fights for the sake of pride. The wise man fights only when the cause is worthy. Seneca once said, "What's the point of having countless books and countless debates if they lead to no improvement in the soul?" The same goes for arguments. If they don't make you better, why are you in them? Imagine someone at a family dinner bringing up a controversial topic just to stir the pot. The stupid man takes the bait. He argues, offends, ruins the evening. For what? To feel momentarily superior? To prove a point no one asked him to prove? Now contrast that with the wise man. He sees the trap. He lets the comment pass. He keeps his peace and protects his presence. Not because he's afraid, but because he's focused. His ego doesn't need every battle. His time is too valuable. Ask yourself, how much of your life have you spent defending things that don't move you forward? How many hours have you given to people who weren't worth a single minute? How many pointless arguments have you replayed in your head while your real priorities waited in silence? The stupid man lives in distraction. He wears his outrage like armor, but it's heavy, and it slows him down. The wise man knows not every hill is worth dying on. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every opinion needs your correction. So before you enter the next argument, ask yourself, what will this cost me? Time? Energy? Focus? Is it worth it? Because sometimes, the strongest move isn't to speak louder. It's to walk away. Quietly. Powerfully. Free. Sign number 7, he surrounds himself with other stupid people. A man's character is revealed not just by what he says or does, but by who he keeps close. The stupid man surrounds himself with people who make mediocrity feel safe. Friends who waste time, make excuses, gossip about others, and treat growth like a joke. These aren't just bad influences. They're anchors. And he holds onto them not because he respects them, but because they never challenge him to rise higher. They make his comfort zone feel like a kingdom, even when it's really a cage. It's the classic crabs in a bucket mindset. Whenever one crab tries to climb out, the others pull him back down. Not out of malice, but out of fear. Fear of change, fear of someone else breaking free and exposing their stagnation. Now picture this, a young man starts reading, exercising, saving money. He's hungry for change. But his old friends notice, and they don't like it. Bro, you've changed, they tease. Chill out. Life's not that serious. At first, he laughs it off. But slowly, the pressure sinks in. He skips a few workouts, misses a few goals. Eventually, he becomes who he used to be. Not because he wanted to, but because he was surrounded by people afraid of who he was becoming. The Stoics warned us about this. Epictetus said, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. That's not just advice. It's survival. Because your environment will either elevate you or erode you. There is no middle ground. The wise man understands this. He seeks out those who are stronger, sharper, more disciplined than him. Not to compete, but to learn. He's not afraid to be the weakest in the room because he knows that's the room where strength is built. He welcomes discomfort because he knows that comfort never changed a man's life. And if you look at anyone who has achieved real growth, mentally, physically, spiritually, you'll find one thing in common: they surrounded themselves with people who demanded more from them than they demanded from themselves. So take a moment. Look at your circle. What kind of conversations do you have? What kind of values are celebrated? Do these people fuel your future or feed your distractions? Because if you're always the smartest, strongest, or most disciplined in your group, you're not leading. You're lingering. Choose your company with courage. Because who you walk with decides where you end up. Now that you've seen the signs, the question isn't who else needs to hear this. It's what am I going to do with it? The truth is, the world will always have foolish men. Men who stay stuck, who repeat their mistakes, who trade growth for comfort. But you don't have to be one of them. Awareness is the first step. Courage is the next. And if something in this video sparked that awareness, hold on to it. Don't let it fade. Reflect on it. Apply it. And if you're ready to grow, to think deeper, to choose wisdom over ego, then stay with us. Because this journey is far from over. If any part of this spoke to you, show some support. Not for me, but for the man you're becoming. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a wake-up call. And in the comments, just write "no more excuses." Because that's where it begins. The next step? It's coming in the next video. But for now, carry this with you: you're not defined by your past, only by what you choose to do next. Keep choosing better. You've got this.